Hey guys, tonight we slip into the cool hush of a desert camp, where dawn presses gently against canvas walls, and the first faint threads of sunlight paint the sand in pale silver. You stir awake, hearing the muffled snorts of camels, and the scratch of merchants shuffling sacks of saffron, cinnamon, and pepper. The truth is, if you were dropped here suddenly, you probably wouldn't survive the first week. Too hot by day, too cold by night, too many fleas hiding in wool blankets. But because this is history made boring on purpose, you get to lie back and let me worry about the heavy lifting. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you're awake enough, share your location and the local time in the comments. It's fun to see who else is drifting into this sleepy caravan with us. Now, dim the lights. Maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum. And let's ease into tonight's journey together. The desert has its own morning soundtrack. Canvas flaps thump lightly in the breeze, and somewhere, a kettle squeals on glowing embers. The air smells of dust, smoke, and crushed coriander seeds. You rub your eyes, grit in your lashes, and see a merchant pouring water from a goatskin bag into a copper pot. He doesn't notice you staring. He's too busy shaking in a fistful of black peppercorns, the sound like tiny stones rattling. Pepper, by the way, was so prized in medieval Europe that it sometimes stood in for actual coins. There's a dusty ledger from Venice noting a debt repaid entirely in peppercorns. Try jamming that into a vending machine. Nearby, a boy unties a bale of cinnamon bark. Each strip curls like a brittle ribbon, the fragrance so sharp it cuts through the smell of damp camel hair. A whisper of cloves floats from another bundle, bitter and sweet all at once. One merchant sighs loudly, swearing his saffron threads have been clipped. Historians still argue whether saffron was ever routinely stretched with shredded marigold petals, or if that's just medieval gossip repeated too many times. You crouch by the spice sacks, fingertips tracing the rough weave of jute. The sun hasn't fully risen, yet the horizon already glows faintly pink. The caravan leader calls out in a low, steady voice, his syllables bouncing from tent to tent. His beard drips with dew, his eyes half shut with sleep. You wonder if he dreams in numbers, measuring weights, tallying debts, memorizing miles. Someone sneezes violently. The pepper dust has no mercy. You grin despite yourself. Joke number 1. Medieval allergy season was basically 12 months long. The sneezing echoes, chased by laughter. A merchant slaps his friend's back and mutters about too much spice, not enough bread. You sip from a clay cup past your way. The liquid is bitter, like herbs boiled past their prime, but it warms your chest. A fringe tidbit slips in. Some caravans carried blocks of pressed tea, molded and stamped like coins. People bit off chunks and brewed them into bitter, earthy broth. Imagine paying for your breakfast noodles with a chunk of the very leaves you'd eat with. The first camels groan as they're forced to their knees. The sound is theatrical, as though they've just read the tax codes of 2 different empires. Jute ropes creak, wooden chests bang together, and the desert floor vibrates with hooves. Sand puffs rise like flower clouds, drifting across the half-lit camp. You breathe deeply, that strange cocktail of spice, smoke, and sweat. This morning ritual has happened for centuries. Merchants rising with the sun, preparing goods that traveled thousands of miles. It's one of the quieter facts of global history. Without pepper and cinnamon, entire trade networks might never have grown into the sprawling webs that linked China, Persia, and Europe. And yet, here it feels oddly simple, almost sleepy. Your eyes follow the path of a single saffron thread, caught on a man's sandal. It trails behind him like a golden hair until it vanishes in the dust. It's nothing, but it feels like the perfect symbol of this moment. Fragile, fleeting, absurdly precious. The caravan leader claps his hands, sharp as flint. Everyone moves faster now, loading, tying, shouting. And you, still drowsy, sway gently in the half-light, letting the scene settle like a lullaby. At the far edge of the camp, the sun finally slices the horizon. The dunes glow peach, then gold, and the world seems to hold its breath. And right here, just as the morning begins, I'll remind you again. If you've made it this far, and your eyes haven't closed yet, maybe drop a like and subscribe. It helps more than you'd think, and it keeps this sleepy caravan moving. You stand, stretch, and brush sand from your robe. Ahead, the road waits, long and unbroken. You rise slowly from the woven mat, brushing sand from your sleeves, and feel the day pulling you toward its work. Around you, the desert camp hums with a rhythm as steady as heartbeat. Ropes tighten, leather creaks, and the low voices of merchants drift through the cool air. Every sound feels both ancient and familiar, as though the caravan itself has rehearsed this routine for centuries. You step toward the mule line. Their long ears flick at flies. Their hooves dig little half-moons into the sand, and they eye you with suspicion as you approach with the first heavy sack. It's filled with cinnamon bark, curled strips of reddish wood that release a sharp, sweet fragrance even through the rough jute. The bundle lands across the mule's back with a grunt, and you tug the straps tight. The animal groans in protest. Honestly, the same sound you made when you stood up a few minutes ago. Peppercorns follow. Small black beads sealed in sacks so dense you could mistake them for stones. In truth, they might as well be treasure. Mainstream fact. Medieval records often called pepper black gold because pound for pound, it rivaled silver in value. It was a currency of its own, accepted at ports, in cities, even in distant villages where people might never see the ocean, but could recognize the worth of a single handful of spice. You step back and wipe your hands on your robe. Pepper dust leaves faint stains, little black constellations across the fabric. You mutter that you've just invented galaxy print fashion centuries too early. Joke number one, if only you could patent it, you'd never have to haul another sack. The caravan leader walks past, a tall man whose beard hides most of his face, yet his eyes miss nothing. He points at your knots and nods once. You exhale quietly. Approval feels rare, like water in the desert. His assistant scribbles something onto a wax tablet, the ancient version of a shipping manifest. Historians still argue whether these records were meant for actual bookkeeping or simply as props for negotiations, designed to impress buyers with the illusion of meticulous order. Either way, the assistant scratches lines into wax, lip toying as if reciting to himself. Another mule sidesteps nervously. Its load is saffron, light as air, worth more than gold. You glance at the thread spilling faintly from the top of the sack, fiery strands glowing even in dawn's dim light. You steady the mule, whispering reassurances it doesn't understand, and feel the fragile weight press against your palm. Fringe tidbit. In some regions, merchants once mixed saffron into bricks of wax and used it as perfume sticks, burning them in temples or palaces. A few threads here could perfume an entire hall. You shake your head at the thought, burning money just to smell nice. Humans have always had strange priorities. The sun climbs higher and shadows shorten. Sweat dampens your back, sticking cloth to your skin. You tug at it uselessly, then bend to lift another sack. Knots cut into your palms, rough hemp biting into skin already lined with calluses. Someone nearby curses as their load topples, peppercorns scattering into sand like spilled treasure. Half a dozen people dive after them, pinching each seed as though saving pearls. You crouch too, fingers sifting through grit until black spheres dot your palm. Joke number 2. A single sneeze could bankrupt half this camp. A camel bellows from the far side of the camp. Its voice is deep, resonant, carrying over the dunes like a trumpet. The sound is followed by groans as handlers coax it to rise. Camels bear the heaviest loads, chests of coins, jars sealed with wax, bolts of cloth wound tight. Their patience is thin, but their endurance unmatched. You walk over, patting one on the side. Its hide is warm and rough, a wall of muscle under skin. The camel turns its head slowly, exhales straight into your face, and leaves you gagging on a hot gust of grass and bitterness. You mumble thanks anyway. Joke number 3. That's your free sample of camel breath incense, guaranteed to keep you awake until noon. Ropes tighten, straps creak, and the air fills with the mingled scents of leather oil, sweat, and spice. One merchant stands counting bundles aloud. 3 sacks cinnamon, 5 pepper, 2 saffron, he mutters, tapping each with a stick. The assistant repeats it back, tapping wax with his stylus. It is a system of sound and memory, a living list that holds the caravan together. Forgetfulness here could mean one. You wonder what it would feel like to lose track, to realize halfway across a desert that your fortune slipped away with an untied rope. The leader makes another circuit. His shadow stretches across your feet. He pauses, stares at the stubborn mule that refuses to rise. Men tug, push, plead, but the animal sits stubbornly in the sand. Finally, the leader crouches, places a hand on its neck, and whispers something. You can't hear the words, but a moment later, the mule rises, as though ashamed of its tantrum. Historians still argue whether animals truly respond to certain voices, or if human timing just looks like magic. Either way, the crowd cheers softly, relief spreading through the camp. By now, the horizon blazes, dunes lit with fire. The camp looks theatrical in this glow, every sack and rope cast in gold. You step back and see the line of animals forming, bundles swaying, dust rising in lazy curls. The caravan is nearly ready, a living serpent coiled for its daily march. You stretch your arms, shoulders aching from labor. Your hands are darkened by pepper dust, knuckles scratched by rope. You study them for a moment, wondering how many anonymous hands across history have looked exactly like this. Calloused, stained, forgotten, yet vital to the endless movement of trade. The leader raises his hand, and the camp stills. Voices fade, animals shuffle, but a hush spreads like a blanket. You stand in it, aware of the moment's weight, aware that soon, with a single signal, the caravan will step into the desert, carrying half the world's spices across its back. You adjust the last strap on your mule, feel it creak into place, and step aside. The animal shifts but steadies, ready. The morning sun touches your face, bright and merciless, and you squint against it. The day has begun, and with it, the endless road. The caravan begins to stir forward, slow as a great beast lifting itself from slumber. Sand shifts beneath the hooves and padded feet, sending little clouds curling into the morning air. You fall into step, your sandals sinking slightly with each stride, the grain sliding and whispering like tiny waves. The sound is hypnotic, a soft crunch that repeats endlessly, a rhythm older than the route itself. You adjust the strap across your shoulder and squint at the horizon. where the road dissolves into a wavering shimmer. The sun is still low, yet already the desert seems intent on reminding you who is master here. Heat gathers quickly, rolling off the ground in invisible sheets. A faint breeze brushes your face, but instead of cooling you, it brings with it the dry taste of dust. You lick your lips, the grit sticking. Joke number 1. Congratulations. You've invented the world's least appetizing seasoning: sand salt. Around you, merchants chatter to distract themselves from the growing weight of the day. A man to your left launches into a story about his cousin in Samarkand, who once sold a single bolt of silk for a price high enough to buy 3 houses. Another insists the cousin exaggerated, that no one would ever pay so much. You smile faintly, because exaggeration is practically the main currency of the Silk Road. Historians still argue whether tales of impossible profits were designed to lure new merchants, or whether some lucky trades actually did make people rich beyond reason. The truth lies buried under centuries of sand and rumor. A camel ahead sneezes violently, sending a spray of dust and spit across the path. The man leading it groans and wipes his face with a sleeve already soaked in sweat. You laugh quietly. Joke number 2. Free exfoliation treatment. Silk Road edition. The path narrows as you climb a low ridge. Rocks jut out like old teeth, and you pick your steps carefully to avoid twisting an ankle. The mules plod on, steady, their load swaying but secure. Every now and then, one lets out a loud bray, as though protesting the unfairness of carrying spices instead of sipping cool water in some shady grove. The sound bounces off the barren hills and returns as a faint echo, like another caravan calling from a distance. You pause to look back. The camp is gone from sight, swallowed by sand and horizon. All you see now is the winding line of animals, merchants, and dust stretching behind you, a snake of commerce slithering across emptiness. It is strangely beautiful, and for a moment you feel very small, like a single peppercorn in a vast sack. The smell of spice clings even here, cinnamon and cloves mingling with sweat and leather. It is both comforting and overwhelming, as though the air itself has turned into soup. A mainstream fact drifts into your mind. Cloves, native to the Maluku Islands, traveled thousands of miles to end up in markets as far west as Rome. That distance made them precious, but it also meant by the time they reached buyers, many had lost half their flavor. You chuckle. Imagine paying a fortune for stale groceries. A boy carrying a goatskin waterskin runs past, handing it to thirsty merchants. You take a sip and grimace. The water is warm, tinged with leather, but your throat welcomes it anyway. You hand it back, thanking him. He grins, revealing teeth stained with something red, perhaps beetle nut. The sight is both alarming and strangely cheerful. Fringe tidbit. Some travelers chewed resins or herbs constantly, believing it kept their mouths moist and warded off evil spirits. Whether it worked or not, their teeth paid the price. The ridge slopes downward, and the path opens again. Sand stretches in waves, endless, the horizon trembling with heat. One merchant begins humming a tune, low and steady. Another joins in, then another. Soon, the line carries a soft chorus, a melody without words. It makes the miles pass more gently, though the notes sometimes drift off key. Joke number 3. A caravan choir, guaranteed to scare away jackals and potential record labels alike. The sun climbs, relentless. Shadows shrink until they crouch directly beneath each animal in person. Your robe sticks to your back, and sweat runs down your spine in lazy trails. The air vibrates with cicadas you cannot see, their droning rising and falling like a chorus of invisible bells. You wipe your brow with a sleeve, only to smear more dust across your skin. The leader calls a halt. Animals kneel, merchants collapse onto the sand, and the boy with the water skin makes another round. You sit, stretching aching legs, and let your gaze wander. The desert is both empty and full, nothing but sand and sky, yet alive with tiny movements, lizards darting between rocks, beetles leaving tracks like calligraphy, a hawk circling high overhead. You feel as though the land itself watches, curious about your progress. Merchants begin opening small sacks, checking their contents. One man pinches a clove between his fingers, crushes it, and inhales deeply. His eyes close in satisfaction. Another chews on a piece of dried ginger, wincing at the burn. They talk of markets ahead, of prices that rise and fall like tides. Some claim pepper will fetch twice its weight in silver in the next town. Others warn that buyers are already weary, their purses thin. Historians still argue whether caravans spread such rumors deliberately to inflate or depress markets before arrival. You listen, amused, knowing you'll never find a straight answer. The leader gives the signal to rise again. Animals grunt, merchants groan, and the caravan lurches forward. You push yourself up, dust clinging to your knees, and fall back into step. The road stretches endlessly, yet somehow you find comfort in its monotony. Each step is one more grain in the hourglass of the journey, steady, inevitable, oddly soothing. The air shifts slightly, carrying with it a faint fragrance, something sharper than the spices you carry. You sniff, curious. It is the smell of salt, carried on a breeze from some distant lakebed or dried river. You close your eyes and imagine the glittering crust of white against the horizon, a reminder that the desert once held water, that life flows in cycles even here. You open your eyes again, adjusting your pack. The sun glares down, unforgiving, but your body settles into the rhythm of walking, of breathing, of sweating, of enduring. You are one thread in a tapestry that spans continents, a small part of the great weaving of trade and time. And though your feet ache and your throat longs for cool water, you keep moving, because that is what the road demands. Ahead, the caravan curves slightly, following the line of a shallow valley. You tighten your grip on the strap, squint at the wavering horizon, and prepare yourself for whatever waits at the next bend. The caravan slows as the valley narrows, funneling everyone toward a dusty outpost crouched at the edge of the road. A few mud brick buildings huddle together, their walls sun-baked and cracked, looking as though a stiff breeze might scatter them into memory. Yet here they stand, stubborn survivors, offering a pause on the endless march. The smell of smoke drifts from a small hearth, and faint laughter carries from behind a low wall. Merchants straighten their robes, brushing sand away as though dusting off dignity. Coins are checked, sacks retied, and eyes sharpen into that familiar mix of hope and suspicion. You tug the strap of your mule's load and lead it closer. The air thickens with the noise of bargaining, loud voices, quick gestures, and the constant clink of metal against metal. It is less a market and more a theater, with every seller and buyer performing their roles for an audience that never ends. A man in a turban steps forward, eyeing your bundle of peppercorns. He pinches one between two fingers, sniffs, and pretends to cough as though insulted by its mediocrity. You know the act. Buyers always start by insulting the goods. He spits the seed into the sand, shaking his head. "Barely worth the effort," he says, loudly enough for others to hear. Then, of course, he names a price so low it makes you laugh. Joke number 1. If this man offered to buy your shoes, he'd probably claim they were counterfeit feet. You counter, equally dramatic, insisting the pepper is fresh from southern India, carried by ship and camel across half the world. The truth is, pepper often lost potency on such long trips, yet its reputation carried further than its flavor. Mainstream fact: medieval households in Europe sometimes displayed pepper jars like trophies, even if they rarely opened them. Pepper was less about taste and more about status. The buyer raises his offer slightly. You shake your head, sigh theatrically, and begin to walk away. It is part of the ritual. You must be willing to leave, even if your mule's back aches with the weight of unsold spice. The man calls you back, chuckling, and names a better price. Around you, other deals rise and fall like waves. Cinnamon weighed on rough scales, saffron threads pinched between fingers, bolts of cloth rubbed and stretched to test their strength. The air swells with the rhythm of commerce. A boy runs past carrying a tray of small clay cups. He offers you one, and you sip the liquid carefully. It's thin tea, flavored with mint leaves that grow in a nearby well-tended patch. The taste is fresh, sharp, cutting through the desert's heaviness. Fringe tidbit: some caravans recorded paying higher prices for mint at outposts than for meat, because mint could hide the taste of brackish water. You swallow gratefully, deciding you would have paid the same. The outpost's main square is no larger than a courtyard, yet it thrums with life. Traders from the north argue over bolts of wool, while a man in bright robes displays lapis stones that glitter blue in the sun. Children dart between animals, laughing as they scoop up stray peppercorns fallen from sacks. Dogs bark, camels groan, goats bleat. It is chaos, but a practiced one. Your pepper buyer finally presses silver coins into your palm. They clink with satisfying weight. You tuck them into a pouch tied tight under your robe, close enough to feel their presence against your ribs. Money here is more than exchange. It is reassurance, proof that the day's labor means something. Historians still argue whether coins or barter dominated along the Silk Road, since records show both existing side by side. To you, it hardly matters. As long as someone pays, you'll keep walking. Nearby, a heated debate breaks out over a bale of saffron. One man claims the threads are too short, a sign they've been cut. Another insists saffron always varies, depending on the fields and the harvest. Voices rise, hands wave, and soon half the square is drawn into the argument. You grin, remembering that saffron disputes have probably echoed across centuries. Some things never change. A merchant calls you over to see his collection of dried fruits. Dates, figs, and apricots lie in neat rows, glistening with sugar. You nibble one, the sweetness exploding on your tongue, almost dizzying after so much dust and spice. The man insists his fruit lasts longer than any other, dried under the purest sun. Joke number 2, as if the desert offers a deluxe package of sunshine with optional upgrades. Coins change hands, sacks shift shoulders, and the outpost's little world spins on. A woman in bright scarves sells tiny amulets, claiming they protect travelers from sandstorms. Merchants buy them anyway, half mocking, half fearful. You consider purchasing one, then decide your luck is already stretched thin enough. The caravan leader moves among the crowd, checking deals, urging haste. His eyes scan constantly, wary of thieves. Outposts are safe enough by day, but pockets empty quickly in a crowd. You feel the weight of your silver again, reassuring yet dangerous. As the sun climbs, heat presses down hard. Shadows curl under walls. shrinking until they almost vanish. The air grows heavy, shimmering above rooftops. Traders retreat to shaded corners, their voices softer now, their gestures slower. You find a patch of shadow near a wall and sit, legs stretched, watching the square like a stage play winding toward its end. A man beside you lights a small brazier and drops in a pinch of clove. The smoke curls upward, sweet and spicy, making your nose twitch. He waves the smoke toward his goods, a trick to lure buyers with scent as much as sight. You think it clever, advertising centuries before billboards. Mainstream fact: spices were sometimes burned in temples, not only for their smell, but also to demonstrate wealth. Since fire consumes value as surely as mouths do, your mule shifts restlessly, hooves stamping the ground. You rise, pat its neck, and adjust the load. The square is quieter now. Most deals struck, most voices tired. The leader raises his hand, signaling the caravan's time to move again. Slowly, merchants gather, animals kneel and rise, and the rhythm of departure takes hold. As you step back onto the road, coins secure, spice sacks lighter, you glance once more at the outpost. It fades quickly behind you, swallowed by dust and horizon, just another dot along a line that stretches forever. You trudge onward, shoulders aching, lips cracked, yet a small smile rests on your face. For all the noise, the haggling, the coughing and sneezing, there is satisfaction in the ritual. The caravan moves, and you move with it, part of the endless tide of goods and stories flowing across the world. The sun climbs toward its cruel throne overhead, and the outpost dwindles into a blur behind you. The caravan lumbers on, each footstep pressing deeper into the sand, each breath heavier than the last. Before long, the leader raises his hand, and the line slows, then halts entirely. The order ripples backward until the very last mule plants its hooves in the dust. It is midday, and the desert has declared its rules. Nothing moves too quickly. Nothing defies the heat. Camels kneel with groans, their loads shifting as though sighing with them. Merchants drop bundles, stretch their backs, and fan their faces with scraps of cloth. You slide down onto the sand, though cool ground is a lie by now. Heat radiates upward, as if the earth itself has been forged into a skillet. You wiggle your toes inside your sandals, wondering if dinner could be cooked beneath your soles. Joke number 1. Congratulations, you've just invented Silk Road Barbecue, Footwear Edition. Tents rise in a matter of minutes, practiced hands driving stakes into reluctant earth. Canvas flaps open to reveal shade, thin though it may be, and suddenly, the barren land transforms into a resting village. You shuffle inside one tent, the air instantly less punishing. Merchants collapse in circles, their laughter quieter now, dulled by fatigue, but not extinguished. Someone passes around a basket of flatbread, brittle and warm, broken into uneven shards. You take a piece and chew slowly. The bread is dry enough to scratch your throat, but relief comes when another man pours tea from a battered kettle. The brew is weak, mostly tinted water, yet it carries the faint tang of herbs. Mainstream fact: travelers along the Silk Road often relied on tea or thin broth, not only for refreshment, but also as safer alternatives to plain water, which could be brackish or contaminated. You sip carefully, feeling the warmth spread through you, despite the day already blazing hot. Humans are odd. We crave warmth, even in heat. The tent fills with mingled smells: sweat, smoke, spices seeping from sacks, and the sharp citrusy edge of dried coriander. A merchant leans back against his bundle of cinnamon, eyes half shut, as if the aroma alone lulls him toward sleep. Another man stretches his legs and begins humming softly. The tune is strange, lilting, from a land you don't recognize. Soon a few others join, voices weaving together. The sound is gentle, almost prayerful. One merchant begins telling a story, his voice low and steady. He claims to have seen a sandstorm rise without warning, swallowing an entire caravan within minutes. Only those who tied themselves to their camels survived, guided blindly until the storm passed. Listeners shake their heads, some skeptical, others nodding grimly. Historians still argue whether such tales were exaggerations meant to frighten new travelers or genuine warnings passed down through generations. You sip more tea, half hoping never to test the story yourself. Outside, the animals rest too. Mules stand motionless, eyes half-lidded, tails flicking lazily. Camels chew endlessly, their jaws moving in slow circles. The sound is oddly soothing, like the steady ticking of a clock. A boy carries around a bundle of dates, offering them for a coin apiece. You trade a peppercorn for two, a bargain in your eyes. The sweetness bursts across your tongue, a tiny explosion of sugar against the desert's bitterness. Fringe tidbit. Dried dates were once considered near miraculous travel food, able to last for months and restore energy quickly. Entire journeys were said to depend on their sticky resilience. A ripple of laughter fills the tent when one merchant attempts to juggle 3 apricots, only to drop them all within seconds. He bows dramatically, announcing he'll stick to selling spices instead of joining a circus that won't exist for centuries. Joke number 2, a standing ovation from the audience of 0. You lie back on your mat, staring at the fabric roof. Patterns of light dance across it as the sun shifts outside. Shadows of ropes and flaps swaying in rhythm with the breeze. Your eyelids grow heavy, but you resist. Sleeping now would only make you groggy when the road calls again. Instead, you let your ears wander through the hum of camp. Muffled snores, muted gossip, the creak of leather straps being tightened again just in case. The leader sits apart, silent, drinking tea in slow sips. His eyes scan constantly, never fully resting. He seems less man than compass, always oriented toward the journey ahead. You wonder if he ever allows himself to simply exist, to forget the weight of roots and risks. Perhaps not. Perhaps leaders are forever half awake, never truly at ease. Time slides forward, slow as honey. Heat continues pressing, but inside the tents, a fragile peace settles. Someone strikes a flint, sparks catching on twigs, and soon a small fire burns. The smell of roasting meat drifts faintly, though you know it is little more than scraps, stretched thin to feed too many mouths. Still, hunger sharpens the senses, and even a morsel tastes like feast when shared in company. A merchant beside you unwraps a packet of dried ginger. He offers you a sliver, and you accept. The taste burns across your tongue, sharp and fiery, making your eyes water. He chuckles, claiming it wards off fatigue. You're not convinced, but you keep chewing, if only to stay awake. Mainstream fact: ginger was prized as much for its medicinal uses as for cooking, believed to warm the body and calm troubled stomachs. You can confirm at least one of those effects. It certainly warms everything it touches. Outside, the camp lies quiet, except for the occasional snort of an animal or the cry of a hawk circling overhead. You feel a rare stillness, as though the desert itself has paused to watch the fragile human gathering within it. The silence stretches, thick and golden, until it becomes almost a sound of its own. Then, slowly, movement begins again. Merchants rise, stretching stiff limbs, pulling on sandals, tightening belts. Mats are rolled, ropes coiled, and tents collapse into bundles. Animals are coaxed upright, their groans echoing like an orchestra tuning for the next act. The leader stands, lifts his staff, and the hush of rest transforms once more into the hum of departure. You gather your own things, shake dust from your robe, and step outside. The light nearly blinds you after the tent's shade, and heat presses against your face like an open oven. Yet you breathe it in deeply, knowing it is the air that carries you onward. The road is waiting, endless as ever, and though you long for cool shadows, your feet know only forward. The caravan begins to move again, a ripple of motion stretching across the sand. You fall into step, refreshed in some small way by bread, tea, and laughter. The sun hammers overhead, but you carry with you the memory of shared rest, of stories traded like coins, of small jokes carved against the desert's enormity. And as you walk, you smile faintly, knowing the road will test you again. But for now, you are steady. One more voice in the great procession of history. The caravan stretches into a long, uneven line once more, shadows trailing thin beneath the blazing sun. You trudge forward, sandals sinking into sand that feels less like ground and more like an ocean paused mid-wave. Each step kicks up a puff of dust that clings to your ankles. The rhythm is steady now, bodies settling back into their roles after the pause. Camels swaying, mules plodding, merchants murmuring. You match your breathing to the beat of hooves and the creak of leather straps, letting the monotony carry you. Beside you, one merchant clears his throat and begins a tale. His voice is rough from dust, yet confident, practiced. He speaks of a caravan that once lost its way, wandering for 7 days until they stumbled upon an abandoned city buried in sand. Its walls still stood, its wells still gave water, but not a single soul remained. Listeners murmur, some skeptical, others enthralled. Historians still argue whether these desert ghost cities truly existed, or if merchants invented them as cautionary tales. You keep walking, eyes scanning the horizon, half expecting to see broken towers jutting from dunes. The man ahead of you joins in with his own story, this one about thieves. He swears he once traded with a group who disguised themselves as wandering monks, their robes hiding blades sharper than scythes. According to him, they stole peppercorns by the sackful, leaving the victims alive, but stripped of dignity. You smile faintly. Every merchant seems to know a thief cleverer than the last. Joke number 1. If even half these tales were true, thieves would have run their own trade network by now. Another voice pipes up from the back, younger, eager to contribute. This one claims he saw a storm turn the sky red for 3 days, the sun hidden as though swallowed. The older men laugh, calling him gullible, but you feel a shiver. A red sky would mean more than dust. It would mean a world turned strange. You glance upward at the flawless blue, thankful for its calm. The caravan leader allows the stories without comment. He strides near the front, staff tapping sand, eyes ever scanning. He has heard them all, you suspect, yet he knows their power. Tales keep feet moving when the miles blur, keep minds sharp when the desert tries to lull them into careless wandering. You tug at your mule's strap, steadying the load. The smell of spices drifts around you, pepper sharp, cinnamon sweet, cloves almost medicinal. The air itself feels seasoned, as though the desert has been turned into a giant stew. Mainstream fact: along the Silk Road, spices were not only trade goods, but also conversation starters, their exotic origins giving rise to endless myths. Some believed cinnamon grew in nests guarded by giant birds, while others swore pepper plants produced venomous serpents. People would rather imagine monsters than admit they didn't know. A gust of wind carries sand against your cheek, stinging like tiny needles. You pull your scarf tighter, muttering about desert beauty treatments. Joke number 2. Pay enough pepper and someone will bottle exfoliating sandstorm for noblewomen back west. The man nearest you points toward the ridge ahead, where faint carvings scar a rock face. He claims they were left by Alexander's armies centuries ago, marking their path east. Another insists they're nothing more than shepherd scratches. You squint, but cannot decide. Historians still argue whether such markings truly link to ancient conquests, or whether they're simply wishful thinking etched in stone. Either way, they give your mind something to chew on besides dust. The path narrows between low hills. Shadows lengthen briefly, a rare reprieve from the sun. Birds circle above, scavengers hoping for a scrap or a fall. You grip your staff tighter, reminded of fragility. Yet laughter continues among the men, jokes traded about who snores loudest, who sweats most, who would last longest if the water skins ran dry. You chuckle too, though the thought of thirst makes your throat ache. Another merchant begins singing, voice rough but steady. The tune is foreign, but soon the others hum along. The sound winds between the hills, echoing back like company. It lifts spirits, at least for a while. Joke number 3. Somewhere out there, jackals are filing complaints about noise pollution. Your feet ache, but you focus on details to distract yourself. The rope frays slightly where it rubs against the mule's side. The clink of coins jingles faintly with each step, hidden under robes. A thread of saffron dangles, catching sunlight like fire. These small things ground you more than the horizon ever could. As the path widens again, the leader signals a brief halt. Merchants sink gratefully to the ground, sipping from skins, wiping faces with cloths already soaked. You sit too, stretching legs that feel heavier than lead. The sand burns through fabric, but you bear it. Rest is rest, no matter how hot. One man pulls a scroll from his pack, unrolling it carefully. The parchment is covered with notes, prices, names, places. He begins reciting them aloud, half to himself, half to anyone listening. You realize he is the scribe, a walking memory bank for trade. Fringe tidbit. Some scribes traveled not as merchants but as historians, recording tales of every caravan they joined. Without them, much of what we know about these roads would vanish into silence. You wonder if your own footsteps will ever be recorded, or if you'll remain only in the dust. The break ends quickly. Loads are checked, ropes retied, animals urged up. You rise once more, groaning at the stiffness. The caravan moves again, each step pulling you deeper into the road's endless rhythm. As afternoon stretches, the heat softens slightly, though the air remains heavy. The light changes, painting dunes in shades of bronze and gold. Shadows return, longer now, stretching like dark rivers. The desert transforms from harsh glare to quiet majesty. You find yourself almost admiring it, though admiration does little to soothe blisters. A boy runs past, laughing, chasing a beetle that scuttles across the sand. His energy makes older men shake their heads. You smile, remembering you were once that tireless, before sand, and years ground you into slower strides. The caravan keeps moving, stories fading now into silence as fatigue grows. Only the steady crunch of footsteps remains, the eternal percussion of trade. You breathe deeply, spice and dust filling your lungs, and let the rhythm carry you onward. The sun dips lower, hinting at evening. Relief whispers in the cooler breeze, though the road still stretches without end. You adjust your robe, pat your mule, and glance toward the fading light. The day is far from over, but the promise of rest glimmers faintly ahead, as sure as the stars soon to scatter across the sky. The air cools slightly as the sun drifts westward, though the sand still radiates heat like hidden embers. You tug at your scarf, loosening it around your neck, and catch a stronger wave of scent rising from the bundles strapped to your mule. The spices have warmed all day under the desert sun, and now they bloom in the evening air, sharper, thicker, more intoxicating. You cough lightly, eyes watering, and realize that this caravan could be followed across dunes simply by its aroma alone. Joke number 1. Forget dogs. A merchant's worst enemy would be a sneeze-sensitive tracker. Pepper dominates, sharp and biting, every sack giving off a faint sting that catches in your nose. Cinnamon follows, sweet and woody, wrapping itself around you like smoke from a hearth. Then cloves, pungent and almost medicinal, a smell strong enough to remind you of apothecaries and temples. Mainstream fact: in many ports, cloves were chewed to freshen breath, considered a luxury sign of refinement. Some rulers even required courtiers to keep a clove tucked in the mouth to mask less pleasant odors. You picture yourself in such a court, constantly fighting not to sneeze and chuckle. The mule flicks its ears as though equally overwhelmed. You pat its side, reassuring it, though your own head feels dizzy from the mixture. One merchant sneezes loudly, doubling over until his turban nearly slips. Another groans, swearing he'll smell like nutmeg forever. You grin, quietly grateful that history has spared you perfume counters filled with sacks of spice dust. A younger boy drifts closer, eyes wide. He unties a corner of cloth to reveal nutmeg, smooth brown seeds that glint in the fading light. He rolls one in his palm, whispering that it can cure fevers, improve memory, even drive away evil spirits. Fringe tidbit: some medieval healers swore nutmeg placed under the pillow prevented nightmares. You imagine centuries of merchants sleeping poorly despite stuffing their mats with expensive seeds, and smile at the irony. The road winds into a shallow pass, rocks rising on either side. Shadows lengthen, cooler air pooling between stone walls. The scent of spices lingers heavier here, trapped in the narrow space. It is like walking through a tunnel of fragrance, each step releasing a new wave of sweetness or bitterness. You breathe carefully, half wondering if too much inhaled spice might pickle your lungs. Joke number 2. Perhaps one day, doctors will diagnose pepper lung as an occupational hazard. A man ahead begins to hum, then breaks into a song about cloves traded for silk. His voice is rough, but others join, repeating the refrain. The lyrics speak of cloves worth their weight in silver, cloves tossed into stews, cloves burned as offerings. The tune is simple, but it carries, bouncing off the rocks until it feels as though the spices themselves sing. You add your voice softly, letting the rhythm match your steps. The leader calls for another halt. Animals kneel reluctantly. Merchants sigh in relief. Fires spark soon after, thin smoke curling into the darkening sky. You sit on the sand, legs aching, and lean against a sack of cinnamon. The smell clings to your clothes, to your hair, to your skin. You realize that by the time you reach the next city, you'll carry a cloud of spice around you like a second robe. Merchants gather, pulling out small handfuls of goods for inspection. One crushes a clove and drops it into boiling water, letting the steam drift through the tent. Another grinds a pinch of cinnamon between two stones, sprinkling it over bread. The taste is sharp, sweet, alive with warmth. You chew slowly, savoring, even though crumbs stick in your beard. Mainstream fact: cinnamon was once thought to grow in nests guarded by giant birds, collected only by brave hunters risking their lives. Historians still argue whether such stories were deliberate inventions by merchants to inflate prices, or whether they arose from misunderstandings carried along the road. You glance at the simple bark in your hand, amused by the leap from bird nests to kitchen bread. One merchant pulls a small scroll from his bag, unrolling drawings of plants he claims to have seen. He swears nutmeg grows from trees so tall their branches scrape the clouds. Others scoff, shaking heads. The debate grows lively, hands waving, voices rising. You listen with half a smile, enjoying the way stories swell into myths under tired tongues. A boy offers you dried figs, sticky and sweet. You trade him a single peppercorn, and he beams as though he's won a fortune. The barter feels almost absurd, but both of you are pleased. Joke number 3. Congratulations, you've just completed the world's first overpriced dessert exchange. Night deepens. The stars appear one by one, scattered across the dark like spilled sugar. The fire's glow paints faces golden, shadows dancing over weary eyes. Spices still perfume the camp, blending with smoke until the air becomes thick enough to taste. You lie back, staring upward, letting the scents and sounds wash over you. Somewhere in the camp, a merchant coughs loudly, swearing he'll never smell cloves again. Another replies that he'll buy every last sack if it means no one else has to carry them. Laughter ripples, tired but genuine. The leader walks the perimeter, staff tapping, gaze sweeping. His face is unreadable, but you sense he too feels the spice-heavy air, the weight of goods carried not only on animals, but in stories, in rumors, in hopes of profit. As you close your eyes briefly, the fragrance lingers. Cinnamon sweetens the edges of your thoughts, pepper pricks at your nose. Cloves hum in your chest. The desert might forget your footsteps, but the scent will remain. A ghost trail for anyone curious enough to follow. Tomorrow the road will stretch on, markets will beckon, bargains will rise and fall like dunes. But for now, you rest inside a world of aroma. A caravan turned into a wandering spice jar, drifting across the vast silence of history. The next morning begins not with silence, but with scratching sounds, the rasp of reed pens on parchment. You blink awake to see a figure seated near the fire pit, hunched over a scroll. His robe is dusty, his turban loose, yet his hand moves with deliberate care, every stroke leaving a mark. He is the scribe, a traveler not for spices, but for words. While others measure profit in silver and peppercorns, he measures it in lines and ink. You shuffle closer, curiosity stronger than the stiffness in your legs. His wax tablet lies open beside him, marked with columns of numbers and names. He glances up briefly, nods once in greeting, then returns to his work. The sound is faint yet steady, as if the desert itself has decided to whisper in written form. Mainstream fact: scribes often joined caravans to keep records of prices, distances, and even notable events. Their writings later used by rulers, or merchants planning new routes. Without them, half of what we know about these roads would vanish. The scribe pauses, lifts his pen, and looks around the camp. His gaze lingers on you, then on the mule beside you. He scribbles again, perhaps noting loads or faces. For a moment, you wonder if your name will survive centuries simply because a stranger thought to write it. Joke number 1. Congratulations, you've just been immortalized as that one sweaty guy with pepper dust on his robe. Other merchants wander closer, curious too. The scribe begins to read aloud portions of his notes. He recites prices of saffron in Bukhara, the cost of cinnamon in Nishapur, the fluctuating value of silver coins in Samarkand. His voice is calm, even, but his words ripple with power. You realize that information is as precious as the spices you carry, perhaps more so. A man who knows the right market can turn a sack into a fortune. A man who guesses wrong might lose everything. One merchant scoffs, claiming the scribe exaggerates. Another counters, swearing by his beard that last season's saffron did fetch such prices. The argument grows warm, but the scribe only smiles faintly, returning to his scroll. Historians still argue whether these records were entirely accurate or carefully crafted to serve their patrons. Were scribes honest witnesses, or were they storytellers polishing reality into something more useful? The debate drifts like sand, unresolved, yet endlessly fascinating. You sit with your bread, chewing slowly, listening to numbers transform into stories. Each coin value becomes a clue, each trade note a tale. The scribe explains that some towns now issue slips of paper, promises of payment, honored in distant markets. Fringe tidbit. These early credit notes allowed merchants to travel lighter, avoiding the danger of carrying sacks of silver. The idea still feels like sorcery, a scrap of paper equal to coins. You rub your pouch of silver thoughtfully, not yet ready to trust in promises alone. The sun climbs higher, tents fall, loads are tied. The scribe tucks away his scrolls, slipping them into a wooden case strapped across a mule. You notice he carries little else. No bales, no jars, just words. Yet men nod respectfully when he passes, as though he shoulders more than any beast. As the caravan sets out, the scribe walks near you. He asks questions casually. How many peppercorns fell yesterday? How heavy your mule's load feels? How many coins you received at the outpost? His pen scratches even as he walks, the parchment balanced on his arm. You answer, half amused, half wary. It is strange to watch your day captured in ink, to know that somewhere in the future, someone may read and imagine you. The road narrows between low dunes, wind whistling through. The scribe pauses often, jotting notes about the terrain, the weather, the direction of the wind. He mutters about stars and maps, about how future travelers might rely on his words more than they trust the horizon. Joke number 2. With enough scrolls, perhaps he'll claim to have invented GPL's goat positioning system. At midday, the caravan halts near a patch of scrub where goats graze lazily. The herders, nomads with sun-baked skin and quick eyes, greet the merchants with cautious nods. They offer dried cheese and ask for spices in return. The scribe watches keenly, writing even as negotiations begin. He notes the number of goats, the exchange rate of cheese for cinnamon, even the laughter when a mule tries to steal a clump of grass. You shake your head, bemused. Who records the mischief of animals? Yet he writes as though every detail matters. The herders chew slowly, savoring saffron threads placed carefully on their tongues. Their faces brighten, and soon trade feels less like business and more like sharing. You bite into the cheese, salty and hard, nearly breaking a tooth. Fringe tidbit. Nomads believed such cheese toughened the jaw and kept the spirit strong. You are less convinced, but your mule seems jealous anyway. When the caravan moves again, the scribe remains near you. He asks about your family, your reasons for joining the journey. You answer vaguely, unsure how much you want written down. He nods, jotting something anyway. The idea unsettles you. Pieces of yourself scattered on parchment, fragments for strangers to read. Historians still argue whether scribes preserved truth or distorted it, shaping people into symbols for tales larger than their lives. Perhaps both. Evening settles with soft light, painting dunes in copper and violet. Fires crackle, meals cook, laughter returns. The scribe sits apart, his scroll unfurled, writing by firelight. Sparks leap into the dark as his pen scratches endlessly. You watch him, wondering if his words will outlast every sack of spice, every coin exchanged. Pepper will be eaten, saffron burned, cinnamon crumbled, but ink might survive. He pauses once, looking at the stars, then writes again. You lie back, staring upward, breathing in cinnamon-scented air. Joke number 3. Somewhere far in the future, a student may yawn through a lecture about anonymous merchant number 7 and never know you're the reason he's awake. You close your eyes, the scribe's scratching fading into the hum of night. Perhaps he is capturing not only trade, but the rhythm of footsteps, the echo of laughter, the smell of cloves in the dark. Perhaps he writes you into memory, so you will not vanish when the desert swallows the road. The caravan sleeps, but ink keeps moving, binding the day into lines that may outlive every voice. The caravan winds onward through a pale morning, the light soft enough to make the dunes glow like powdered gold. Ahead, a faint trail curls between ridges, and along it approaches another group. Lean figures moving with animals smaller than camels, quicker than mules. Their clothes are patched but clean, their eyes alert, their step assured. These are nomads, herders who roam where the desert grants a little grass and the occasional trickle of water. The caravan leader raises his staff in greeting, and the nomads reply with lifted hands. Soon, both groups converge at a shallow hollow where scrubby bushes cling stubbornly to life. The animals snort and shift, sensing one another. A space is cleared, bundles dropped, and negotiations begin without preamble. You stand back, watching as cheese, milk, and skins of sour yogurt are laid out on woven mats. The caravan merchants counter by loosening spice sacks, letting the air itself argue on their behalf. The fragrance swells, cinnamon, cloves, and saffron rising like invisible banners. One nomad inhales deeply, his face half amused, half amazed. Mainstream fact: pastoral peoples often valued spices less for flavor and more for preservation, using pepper and cinnamon to slow the spoiling of meat in harsh climates. The leader signals you to fetch a small packet of cinnamon. You untie the knot, fingers sticky with resinous dust, and hand it over. The nomad weighs it thoughtfully, then produces a wheel of dried cheese, rough and yellowed, harder than stone. He breaks it with a practiced crack, offering a chunk. You bite cautiously. The taste is salty, pungent, strong enough to make your eyes water, but it lingers with a kind of stubborn satisfaction. Joke number 1. If flavor could walk, this cheese would stomp loudly through your dreams. The exchange continues. A few threads of saffron are offered. glowing like fire against the coarse palms of the nomads. They murmur softly, clearly impressed. In return, they bring forward skins of fermented milk, the liquid bubbling faintly. You sip once, grimacing at its sharpness, yet it quenches thirst more effectively than warm water. Fringe tidbit. Some nomadic groups believed fermented milk not only nourished the body, but also warded off evil spirits hiding in the desert winds. You wonder if spirits prefer their milk plain. The scribe, never far, scribbles furiously, noting the rate of exchange. His stylus scratches, recording that a handful of cinnamon equals 1 cheese wheel. A pinch of saffron equals 2 skins of milk. You marvel at how value shifts depending on where you stand. Here, milk is more precious than silver, and cheese more vital than coins. Historians still argue whether such exchanges represent fairness or necessity, whether nomads were exploited by caravans, or whether both sides walked away equally enriched. Children hover at the edge of the gathering, giggling as they watch. One boy points at your mule, laughing at its stubborn expression. He imitates the animal's bray until others join, their laughter echoing across the hollow. You crouch, offer him a single peppercorn, and his eyes widen as though you've given him treasure. He pockets it quickly, proud of the prize no larger than a fingernail. The merchants and nomads sit together. Bread shared, cheese passed around, stories exchanged. One nomad speaks of wolves that follow their flocks, clever enough to wait for storms before striking. Another tells of wells hidden beneath dunes, found only by those who know how to read the shapes of the sand. The merchants listen, trading their own tales of distant markets and crowded cities. The air hums with voices weaving 2 worlds together. Your mule snorts, pulling your attention back to the loads. You check the knots, fingers tugging the ropes. Spices shift inside, their scents mingling stronger in the warming air. The nomads sniff curiously, unused to such intensity. One asks if cinnamon burns hotter than fire when placed in stew. You smile and explain clumsily, though your words sound as fanciful as myths. Joke number 2. Somewhere, a storyteller is probably inventing cinnamon dragons even as you speak. The leader rises, signaling the exchange has ended. Hands are clasped, farewells muttered, and soon the nomads scatter back into the horizon, their herds trailing like dots across the sand. The caravan reforms, loads adjusted, animals urged forward. The scribe closes his scroll, tucking it away, though his eyes still shine with what he's recorded. As you walk again, you chew another piece of cheese, its salt clinging to your tongue. You think about the peppercorn in the boy's pocket, about how he will show it to others, about how it will become part of some story told long after the caravan has vanished. The road curves between low dunes, the air growing heavier. A hawk circles high above, its shadow fleeting across the sand. The caravan trudges on, quieter now, weighed down by both trade and thought. Late in the afternoon, the wind picks up. It carries with it not only sand, but also the faint, lingering scent of cheese and milk left behind. The mingling of smells, spice and dairy, desert and trade, clings to your clothes, a reminder that every meeting leaves its trace. You glance back once, but the nomads are gone, swallowed by distance. The desert shows no sign they were ever there. Only your mule's burden, slightly lighter of spice and heavier of food, proves the meeting happened at all. The leader calls out, urging faster steps before night falls. Shadows lengthen, and the caravan quickens, feet beating the sand into rhythm. You breathe deeper, the tang of cinnamon and saffron still filling your nose. Joke number 3. Perhaps centuries from now, someone will smell your robe in a museum and mistake it for an exotic candle. The sun dips lower, and the horizon blurs with purple haze. You steady yourself, tugging at the strap once more, and let your thoughts wander. This meeting, brief as it was, feels larger than trade. It feels like a reminder that survival here is shared, that the road is never traveled alone. The caravan presses on, and you with it, steps heavy yet sure, carrying not just spices, but also the memory of milk, cheese, and laughter scattered like seeds across the sand. By evening, the caravan stumbles upon the massive stone walls of a caravanserai, rising from the desert like a fortress of commerce. The gates stand open, heavy wood bound with iron, wide enough to swallow camels and wagons with ease. Relief hums through the group as they file inside, shadows stretching long in the fading light. Within, the courtyard bursts with life, fires already lit, animals groaning as they kneel, merchants calling out in half a dozen tongues. You guide your mule to a corner and untie its load, shoulders aching with gratitude. The sack of cinnamon thumps onto the ground, a smell of sweetness immediately released into the air. You rub your palms together, the skin raw from rope, and shake out your arms. The mule flicks its ears, finally free, then promptly urinates against the wall in triumph. Joke number 1. Victory speech. Mule edition. The caravanserai is built for exactly this chaos. Along the edges rise stone chambers, some for sleeping, others for storage, others for prayer. Balconies overlook the square, their arches lined with lamps. Above, the sky shifts from copper to indigo, stars pricking through like needles. The air carries smoke, sweat, roasting meat, and, inevitably, the sharp perfume of your own spice bundles mingling with everyone else's goods. Merchants swarm together, their voices overlapping in a chorus of negotiation. Silver coins flash in torchlight, hands clap to seal deals, and laughter ripples even among arguments. Mainstream fact: caravanserais were more than rest stops. They were trading hubs where deals often outweighed those made on the road. Prices shifted daily, depending on who arrived and what they carried. Here, fortunes could change overnight. You wander through the square, eyes catching on the variety of goods. Silk bolts shimmer in lantern glow, their colors dip and impossible. Jars of honey gleam like captured suns. Ivory tusks lean against walls, carved and raw alike. Horses stamp in a corner, their bridles jingling. You realize with a pang that your sacks of spice are just one thread in a vast, tangled web of trade. At one corner, a merchant from the north displays fur cloaks so thick they could smother winter. He strokes them proudly, claiming they come from beasts that stalk frozen forests. You touch one, marveling at its weight, though you nearly gag when a whiff of musty damp hits your nose. Fringe tidbit: some travelers swore furs carried spirits of the animals they once were, whispering to wearers at night. You decide you'd rather keep your noisy mule. A musician appears, lute slung across his chest. He plucks a few tentative notes, then launches into a lively tune. The crowd cheers, coins tossed into his bowl, feet stomping to the rhythm. You smile, swaying slightly, though your legs ache from the day. Joke number 2. Your dancing resembles a camel trying to shake sand out of its ears, but at least you blend into the crowd. You pass stalls where lamps glow with oil, casting golden halos. Merchants huddle in circles, counting coins by firelight. The scribe sits among them, his scroll already open, scribbling as fast as deals are struck. His lips move silently, perhaps repeating numbers, perhaps reciting some private prayer for accuracy. You shake your head. Even here, surrounded by noise, he bends to ink as though nothing else exists. In another corner, food sizzles. A cook stirs meat and onions in a pot, tossing in a pinch of saffron that stains the broth a golden hue. The smell drifts across the courtyard, rich and savory, drawing hungry eyes. You edge closer, coins ready, and soon find yourself clutching a wooden bowl. The stew is hot, greasy, delicious. Cinnamon lingers faintly in the broth. Pepper bites your tongue. Saffron glows in every spoonful. You eat slowly, savoring, though the bread dipped into it disintegrates like wet parchment. Children weave through the crowd, darting around animals, chasing each other with shrieks of laughter. A girl tugs your sleeve, offering a carved wooden charm shaped like a camel. She claims it keeps thieves away. You hand her a coin, not because you believe her, but because her smile feels like a bargain worth striking. The caravanserai's atmosphere shifts as night deepens. The initial frenzy softens into smaller circles of talk. Stories rise, told with wide gestures and exaggerated voices. One man swears he saw silk dyed with colors that shimmered differently under moonlight than sunlight. Another insists pepper grows only on mountains guarded by serpents, dangerous to approach without magic charms. Historians still argue whether merchants spread these myths deliberately to maintain mystery or if tales simply grew in retelling. You sip from a clay cup of thin beer, amused by the absurdity, yet charmed all the same. The animals settle, tied near water troughs. Camels chew in the dark, jaws grinding endlessly. Mules lie down, legs folded, sighing like exhausted men. You feel sympathy, sharing their fatigue. You stretch out on a mat borrowed from another merchant, back grateful for something softer than sand. Around you, music continues, flutes joining the lute, drums tapping softly. The night air is alive with rhythm, with smoke, with voices. You close your eyes briefly, letting the sounds wash over you. Then someone nudges your shoulder, offering a small piece of candied ginger. You chew, the sweetness sharp and fiery. Mainstream fact: candied ginger was valued both as a delicacy and as medicine, believed to warm the blood and steady digestion. In this moment, it simply makes you thirsty. You laugh, accepting a jug of water from another hand. Joke number 3. You wonder if warming the blood just meant heartburn with better branding. The caravanserai quiets gradually, lamps dimming, fires settling into embers. Merchants curl against their bundles, using sacks as pillows. The scribe finally sets down his pen, though his hand twitches as if still writing in dreams. You roll onto your side, staring at the carved stone above you. Its arch curves like a frozen wave, protecting everyone inside. Historians still argue whether caravanserais were more sacred or practical, whether they stood as symbols of generosity or merely tools of commerce. To you, lying on a thin mat, the debate doesn't matter. Here, under these walls, you are safe, fed, sheltered. Tomorrow, the road will claim you again. But tonight, you belong to the glow of lamps and the hum of sleeping voices. The last thing you hear before drifting is a camel groaning low, as if singing a lullaby to the stars. The dawn inside the caravanserai comes not with silence, but with the ringing of coins. Merchants who barely slept rise early, already counting, already weighing. You stir from your mat, rubbing your eyes, and see small piles of silver dirhams glinting under torchlight as men tally their gains from last night's trade. It is less about celebration and more about reassurance, each clink of metal confirming that the journey has been worth at least one more day. You sit up slowly, back stiff, and watch a merchant carefully unfold a slip of paper covered in neat script. He shows it to another, who nods approvingly. These are promissory notes, promises of payment in another city, another week, another caravanserai. Mainstream fact: early forms of credit thrived on the Silk Road, making long-distance trade less dangerous by sparing merchants from carrying too much coin. To you, the concept still feels odd, trusting a scrap of ink more than silver you can bite. Still, you finger the pouch at your side, the silver within cool against your skin. Its weight comforts you. Your peppercorns may spoil, your saffron may lose color, but silver sings the same tune in every market. Joke number 1, unless you drop it in the latrine, in which case its value suddenly becomes philosophical. Around you, negotiations begin again. A merchant offers 2 bolts of silk in exchange for a stack of promissory notes. Another insists that his dirhams, though fewer in number, are better because they jingle more convincingly. The scribe hovers nearby, recording not just what is exchanged, but also how men argue about value. His stylus moves steadily, as though coins themselves might fade, but his words will not. You wander toward the courtyard, where others kneel beside their animals. One man pulls open a chest to reveal not coins, but small lumps of salt, each neatly cut. Iburi explains that, in certain towns, salt carries more weight than silver, vital for preserving food. Fringe tidbit: entire caravans once carried nothing but blocks of salt across the desert, guarded more carefully than gold. You run your tongue across cracked lips, thinking you'd trade half a sack of cinnamon for 1 pinch right now. The leader gathers everyone near the gate. His staff taps stone, his voice low but firm. He reminds the group to guard their gains, to secure pouches close to the body, to distrust flattery. Too sweet. You notice his robe is patched, but his belt heavy with coins. Perhaps the best lesson of all is that wealth must never be flaunted, only protected. One merchant argues with his partner about whether to accept a buyer's promise of future payment. They nearly come to blows, voices echoing against stone walls. Historians still argue whether violence over credit was common or rare. Records show both caution and chaos. You suspect the truth lies in the middle. Men are generous until the numbers feel personal. The argument dies when the leader glares. No one dares disturb the fragile peace of the caravanserai. You sit again with your mule, counting quietly. Pepper worth silver, saffron worth more, cinnamon worth something between. The numbers swirl, dizzying. You realize profit is less about what you carry and more about timing, about whispers of shortages or abundance in faraway cities. The caravan is a moving gamble, every step across the sand a wager against chance. Joke number 2. Congratulations, you've joined the world's slowest casino, where the dice are dunes and the dealer never son llamadas. The scribe approaches, asking about your coins. You show him reluctantly. A few silver pieces, a promissory slip. He nods and writes, then wanders off. You wonder if centuries from now, someone will read his scroll and debate whether you made profit or loss, never knowing the taste of salt on your lips or the sting of dust in your eyes. As the sun rises higher, light floods the courtyard. Merchants finish their deals, tuck coins into belts, hide notes inside robes. The air buzzes with nervous satisfaction. Silver clinks faintly from every pouch. Promises whisper from folded papers. The caravanserai walls hold it all for a moment longer, then release it as gates creak open. The road calls. Camels groan, mules resist, men shout, and soon the caravan surges outward once more. You walk among them, silver heavier against your ribs, now that you know how easily it might vanish. Every coin feels alive, every note fragile. Yet the journey demands you carry them, fragile or not. Outside, the desert greets you with light harsher than memory, dunes glaring under the rising sun. The caravan stretches again into its familiar shape, a line threading across sand. Voices quiet as men focus, counting their wealth silently in their heads. Hours pass. The rhythm returns. Footsteps, groans, clinks. You match it without thinking, as though the coins in your pouch beat time against your ribs. At midday, the caravan halts briefly. Merchants gather in small groups, comparing notes, speculating about markets ahead. Some insist pepper prices will soar in Nishapur. Others argue saffron will collapse in value because too many traders carry it this season. Historians still argue whether such talk truly swayed markets, or was simply a way to pass time. Either way, you realize words weigh as heavily as silver here. You sip tepid water from a skin, chewing a crust of bread. The taste of salt cheese from yesterday lingers still, sharp against the blandness. A merchant beside you offers dried apricots, sticky and sweet. You trade him a single coin, though he laughs, saying you could have offered a peppercorn instead. The barter becomes a joke, others joining in, teasing about who values what more. Joke number 3. The only certainty on the Silk Road is that someone always thinks you've overpaid. The break ends. The caravan moves again, shadows lengthening as afternoon wanes. You touch your pouch often, fingers reassuring yourself the silver is still there. Each time, you remember the leader's warning. Distrust flattery. Guard your gains. Yet you also know no matter how tightly you clutch, wealth is slippery. A storm, a thief, a mistake in the market. Any of these could scatter your fortune like peppercorns into sand. As evening falls, the caravan halts once more. Fires spark, meals cook, laughter returns in tired bursts. Yet tonight, the conversations circle back to money. Who gained most? Who lost? Who risked everything on a promissory slip? The scribe listens, nodding, writing. You sit quietly, chewing bread, listening to silver clink faintly in the dark. You wonder if someday, far from here, these coins will still jingle, passed from hand to hand, carrying a memory of the desert with them. Or perhaps they will vanish, melted down, forgotten, while the scribe's ink outlives them all. The stars appear above, steady, indifferent. You lie back, pouch under your head, silver pressing against your ear. It is uncomfortable, yet you keep it there, unwilling to let go, even in sleep. The road has taught you. Coins may weigh heavy, but emptiness weighs heavier still. The desert night fades gently, like ink diluted by water, and soon the horizon blushes pale with dawn. You rise stiffly, brushing sand from your robe, and hear a sound different from yesterday's groans of camels or clinks of coins. This morning, it is music, soft, winding notes floating from a lute. You follow the sound toward the courtyard of a new resting post, where a group of musicians sits cross-legged on rugs. Their instruments glimmer faintly in the first light. Lutes with polished wood, reed flutes bound in leather, and drums stretched with skins that tremble under tapping fingers. Merchants gather, some still half asleep, drawn by the melody. The air smells of smoke, of last night's fires, of dust clinging to clothes. But the music threads through all of it, sweet and insistent. A boy strikes the drum with a slow heartbeat rhythm. A flute answers, high and wavering, as though calling across miles of sand. The lute joins, strings ringing in quick flourishes, weaving sorrow and joy together. Mainstream fact: music was as vital to caravans as food, both entertainment and memory keeper, carrying stories across distances where words alone might fade. You sit near the fire, chewing a piece of flatbread. The music swells, merchants tapping their feet without noticing. One man sways slightly, eyes closed, as though the sound has loosened years of fatigue from his shoulders. Another claps off beat, earning a glare from his neighbor. Joke number 1. Even on the Silk Road, someone always ruins the rhythm. After a time, a singer joins in. His voice is deep, resonant, carrying across the courtyard without strain. He sings of a city where saffron dyes the robes of monks, of seas where ships carry pepper across storms, of mountains where silk is born from worms. His verses are less fact than dream, yet no one interrupts. The road is long, and sometimes it is easier to believe in poetry than in accounts. The scribe listens, scratching furiously at his parchment, perhaps trying to capture both notes and meaning. You wonder how he will render music in ink. Can a line of script hold a rising chord? Can a mark on wax carry the beat of a drum? Historians still argue whether music transcribed in old scrolls represented actual tunes or merely symbols for rhythm. You smile, thinking how impossible it seems to reduce a song to scratches. As the sun climbs, the music shifts. The drums quicken. The lute plucks sharper. The flute darts like a bird startled from rest. Merchants clap along, laughter bubbling now. Children spin in circles, scarves flying, until they collapse dizzy into the sand. Someone pours tea, sweetened faintly with dried fruit, and passes cups around. You sip, the warmth sharp, the sweetness balancing dust still clinging to your throat. One musician begins a solo, plucking notes that sound like footsteps across stone. He leans back, eyes shut, fingers flying. When he ends, the courtyard erupts in cheers. Coins clatter into a bowl, silver flashing. Fringe tidbit: musicians on the Silk Road often traveled with caravans, trading songs for food and shelter, sometimes earning enough to rival small merchants. You wonder if their wealth was measured less in coins and more in memories carried in sound. The music continues into midday, softening into background hum as the caravan prepares again. The rhythm helps. Tying ropes feels easier when drums mark time, leading mules smoother when flutes echo like whistles. You notice even the camels sway more gently, as if resigned to their roles. As the caravan moves, the musicians walk alongside, still playing. The notes drift into the desert, scattering like birds. The leader does not object. He knows the sound binds spirits, keeps fatigue from breaking men before the day has even begun. Joke number 2. Nothing motivates like music, except maybe the promise of shade and dinner. Hours pass. The sun burns high, but music softens its edge. Songs shift to lighter themes. Love left behind, wine cups raised in distant taverns, mischievous monkeys stealing fruit in ports far away. Laughter rises, voices joining choruses, until the caravan sounds less like weary travelers and more like a parade. At rest, you chew dried meat while the musicians tune their instruments. One man insists his lute is worth more than a mule. Another argues, no, a mule earns silver, while a lute only earns applause. Their banter sparks debate. Historians still argue whether professional musicians were respected or ridiculed by merchants, whether they held honored places or were tolerated only as distractions. You shrug, enjoying the break regardless. As afternoon wanes, the musicians shift again, playing slower, heavier songs. The notes echo the ache in your shoulders, the drag in your feet. Yet even in exhaustion, the sound comforts. Each pluck feels like a reminder that you are still moving, still part of something larger than your own weary body. By evening, fires crackle again. The musicians take central place, surrounded by lanterns. They play while food cooks, their melodies mingling with the scent of roasting lamb and saffron rice. You sit cross-legged, bowl in hand, letting the music guide each bite. The singer returns, voice carrying a story of a kingdom where coins rained from the sky. The crowd laughs, shouting questions. Did the coins hurt when they landed? Did anyone gather them in sacks? Joke number 3. Someone mutters that if coins fell here, half the caravan would be knocked unconscious before profit could be counted. The night deepens. Stars emerge, and the music slows, stretching into lullabies. Children nestle against bundles, eyes heavy. Merchants lean back, sighing contentedly, the fatigue of miles soothed by rhythm. You lie down too, your head pillowed on a sack, the scent of cinnamon filling your nose. The last notes fade into silence, replaced only by the soft chewing of camels and the whisper of wind. You close your eyes, the memory of flutes and drums still humming in your chest. You realize music has done more than entertain. It has bound the caravan, made strangers into companions, turned the road itself into a stage. Tomorrow, the journey continues, but tonight, under stars and song, you belong to something timeless. The next morning breaks with whispers rather than music. Merchants huddle in tight circles, their voices lowered, their eyes darting toward the horizon as though the dunes themselves are listening. You shuffle closer, curious, and catch fragments. New tariffs at border posts, soldiers demanding bribes, rumors of shifting alliances between rulers. The road carries not just goods but politics, and today the weight of unseen decisions presses heavier than the sacks of pepper on your mule. A merchant from the west insists he heard that caravans will soon pay double tax when entering Nishapur. Another scoffs, claiming it is only scare talk spread by competitors. Yet another swears he has a cousin who already lost half his silver at a checkpoint. Historians still argue whether such sudden levies were consistent or arbitrary, whether they were official decrees or merely guards lining their own pockets. You glance at your pouch of coins, suddenly feeling them less like wealth and more like bait. The leader raises his staff, calling for silence. His face is unreadable, but his voice is calm. Rumors are sand, he says. Some blind, some bury, some shift with the wind. Still, you notice the way his jaw tightens. Even the strongest staff cannot strike away politics. The caravan moves on, yet the mood lingers. Men walk quieter, shoulders hunched. You adjust the strap on your mule, listening to the muted clink of coins. They sound almost guilty. Joke number 1. Silver has a way of bragging until taxes arrive. Then suddenly, it forgets how to speak. By midday, the road narrows between stony ridges. Shadows deepen, a relief from heat. but a reminder of ambush. Merchants glance upward, half expecting soldiers or thieves to appear. None do, but tension gnaws sharper than hunger. You chew dry bread, its crust cracking like stone in your mouth, and think of how fragile profit feels. At rest, the scribe unrolls his parchment, recording the rumors in tidy lines. He mutters about patterns, where taxes rise, where tariffs fall, where rulers grow greedy. His words flow like another form of currency, traded not in markets, but in memory. Fringe tidbit. Some scribes sold their information later to courts, becoming early spies disguised as mere record keepers. You wonder if this man, silent and sharp-eyed, will profit more than all the spice traders combined. The caravan resumes, but the conversations remain hushed. A man beside you whispers of bribes disguised as gifts, bolts of silk handed to guards, jars of honey passed under tables. Another shakes his head, insisting honesty wins more respect. The argument circles, unresolved, as most do. Historians still argue whether bribery eroded or strengthened these roots, whether it was corruption or simply another name for negotiation. The road stretches, mile after mile, until the horizon glows with hints of a fortified post. Dust rises around it, shimmering like heat-born ghosts. Soldiers stand at its gates, spears upright, faces unreadable beneath cloth wrappings. The caravan slows, animals groaning as though sensing what awaits. The leader strides forward, staff tapping, his robe plain yet dignified. He greets the guards with firm courtesy. They reply stiffly, their eyes already measuring the loads. One gestures at the spice sacks, and soon bargaining begins, not over flavor, but over legality. The guards claim new tariffs, demand higher payment. The merchants groan, argue, wave their arms. Silver changes hands, reluctantly. A sack of cinnamon is untied, a handful measured into a guard's pouch. Peppercorns are scooped into a small jar. It is less robbery than ritual, the desert's own form of taxation. Mainstream fact. Tolls and tariffs along the Silk Road could consume a third of a merchant's profit, making endurance as important as bargaining skill. You stand silently, clutching your mule's reins, watching silver vanish like water spilled on sand. The guard's face remains blank as he ties his pouch, as though coins are dust to him. You wonder how much will ever reach a ruler's treasury, and how much will fund tonight's feast in the garrison. When the caravan is finally waved through, relief spreads like breath released after holding too long. Merchants mutter curses, some under their breath, some loudly. A man behind you spits into the dust, declaring he'd rather face wolves than guards. Joke number 2. At least wolves don't demand receipts. The caravan moves on, lighter in coin, heavier in resentment. Yet even as voices grumble, you sense resignation. This too is part of the road. As expected as sandstorms or blisters, profit never walks alone. It drags politics behind it like a stubborn mule. By evening, the camp settles near a dry riverbed. Fires crackle, bread toasts, tea brews. Yet the talk returns again to taxes. Some merchants predict collapse. Others insist resilience. A few shrug, claiming tomorrow's market will erase today's loss. The debate circles endlessly, unresolved, like the dunes that reshape each night. The scribe sits apart, his parchment glowing faintly in firelight. He writes steadily, unmoved by complaint, capturing each rumor as though it matters more than silver. You watch him, realizing that while merchants carry goods, he carries stories. Perhaps his load will prove heavier in the long run. A musician plucks a lute softly, trying to lighten the mood. The notes drift, hesitant, then gain strength. Soon a flute joins, then drums. The music lifts voices again, laughter trickling back. Someone claps off beat, someone else sings badly, and suddenly politics fades into background hum. Joke number 3. Nothing silences tax talk faster than discovering your neighbor sings worse than a camel. You lean back against your sack, cinnamon scent wrapping around you. The stars scatter above, silent, indifferent to human arguments. Coins, taxes, bribes, they mean nothing to the sky. You breathe deeply, letting spice and smoke fill your lungs and feel your shoulders ease. Tomorrow the caravan will march again, toward new towns, new prices, new rumors. Tariffs may rise, bribes may sting, politics may shift like dunes. Yet for now, under stars and song, you are safe. Surrounded by voices that laugh even when silver disappears. The desert holds its silence beyond the camp, but inside, warmth lingers. You close your eyes, letting the music fade into your bones. Whatever rulers decree tomorrow, tonight belongs to bread, fire, and the stubborn joy of those who walk the endless road. Night settles deeper, and though fires glow and merchants laugh, someone must remain awake. The caravan leader taps shoulders, assigning guard duty in pairs. Your name is called, and you rise with a sigh, brushing crumbs of bread from your robe. The road demands more than walking and trading. It demands watching, too. You take your staff and move toward the gate, where shadows stretch long under starlight. The desert at night is not silent. Winds sigh across dunes, carrying whispers that sound almost like voices. Camels grunt in their sleep, hooves shifting against sand. Mules snore softly, a strange, wheezing sound that makes you chuckle under your breath. Joke number 1. If there's ever a contest for worst lullaby singers, mules win gold every year. You walk the perimeter, the cold biting now, sharper than the day's heat. Your breath fogs faintly, and you pull your scarf tighter. The stars scatter across the sky in impossible numbers, each one so sharp it seems to hum. Mainstream fact. Many caravans relied on star maps for navigation, following constellations across deserts where landmarks shifted with every storm. Tonight, Orion leans overhead, steady, pointing east as though confirming the road. Your partner on watch, a younger merchant, hums softly to himself. He admits he fears thieves more than storms, for storms scatter goods, but thieves scatter lives. You nod, gripping your staff tighter. The desert breeds stories of raiders who melt into night, striking fast, vanishing faster. Historians still argue whether such raids were constant threats or exaggerated fears retold to heighten drama. Either way, you keep your eyes sharp. A faint sound pricks your ear, movement near the wall. You gesture to your partner, and both of you creep closer. It is only a jackal, nosing at scraps. Its eyes glint briefly before it slinks away, tail low. You exhale, tension easing. Still, the encounter reminds you of fragility, of how thin the line is between safety and loss. The hours crawl. To stay awake, you whisper stories to each other. Your partner claims his uncle once sold pepper for a horse that outran every rival in a race, only to trip and break a leg the very next day. You laugh quietly, shaking your head. Joke number 2. The horse may have been fast, but bad luck runs faster. You share your own memory of hearing about spices measured not by weight, but by single seeds, each one accounted for like coin. He chuckles, then yawns, leaning against the wall. The stars wheel slowly overhead, and you feel time stretch. Guard duty is both endless and fleeting, each breath echoing louder in the quiet. Near midnight, the wind shifts colder. It carries with it distant howls, wolves, or perhaps only the voice of the wind itself. The animals stir uneasily, hooves scraping, ropes tugging. You pat your mule's neck, murmuring nonsense to calm it. The younger guard grips his knife, eyes wide. Nothing approaches, yet the sound gnaws. You both stand tense until silence returns, heavy and complete. You resume your walk, staff tapping softly. Every shadow seems deeper now, every flicker of flame a possible disguise. Yet as minutes stretch, your heart steadies. The road has taught you endurance. If you can walk under sun, you can watch under stars. Closer to dawn, the scribe appears, parchment tucked under his arm. He asks quietly what you've seen. You shrug. Jackals, wind, stars. He nods, noting even that. Perhaps someday someone will read his scroll and imagine this very moment. 2 weary guards, a restless mule, stars sharp enough to cut. Historians still argue whether scribes embellished such reports or wrote with plain honesty. You suspect truth always bends when retold. The scribe lingers, gazing upward. He mutters about constellations, about how traders long before you walked by the same lights. He scratches notes quickly, then drifts away, vanishing into shadow. You envy his freedom from guard duty, yet also admire how he finds stories in silence. Finally, the eastern horizon begins to pale. The first hint of light softens the stars, and the air warms by a fraction. Birds stir faintly, their cries carried on the breeze. You straighten your back, relief flooding as the night ends. The leader approaches, nodding in approval. Guard duty ends with the dawn, but you still feel its weight in your bones. You settle near the fire, exhaustion pressing, yet a quiet pride lingers. You kept watch, and for one night at least, nothing was lost. Merchants rise slowly, stretching, muttering. Fires are stoked, bread reheated, water poured. The camp hums with morning life, unaware of how long the night stretched. You chew bread, gritty with sand, and sip tea bitter enough to wake the dead. Joke number 3. If this tea doesn't cure fatigue, nothing will except maybe another nap. As the caravan prepares again, you glance back at the stars fading. They will return tonight, indifferent and eternal. You think of how many merchants have walked under them, how many guards have whispered stories to stay awake. Perhaps centuries later, someone will do the same, still waiting for dawn. The caravan moves out, shadows shrinking under rising light. You fall into step, eyelids heavy, but the road does not pause. Duty shifts from watching to walking, from silence to sweat. Yet the memory of the night lingers, the hush of stars, the howl of wind, the weight of silver, the scratch of parchment. You realize guard duty is less about defending and more about remembering. That the road is never truly safe. That each dawn is earned by those who watched while others slept. You touch your staff lightly, grateful for its steadiness, and breathe deeply of the desert air. The sun climbs, relentless as ever. Yet you carry with you the quiet strength of night, knowing that though coins may vanish and spices may spoil, the stars will return, and so will you. By midday, the sun burns high, yet the caravan presses onward. Shadows thin as threads beneath each mule and camel. The leader raises his staff, and soon the line veers toward a low stone building tucked beside a cluster of tamarisk trees. It is a small monastery, quiet, its walls the color of baked clay, its door marked with simple paint, faded by wind and time. The air grows hushed as you approach, for even the noisiest merchants feel reverence here. Monks emerge slowly, their robes dyed in shades of faded red and orange. Their heads are shaven, their faces calm, though their eyes shine with curiosity as they study the caravan. They bow slightly, palms pressed together, and the merchants return the gesture. Here, trade takes a gentler form. The monks carry little silver, but they bring other treasures: herbs, manuscripts, quiet blessings. You follow the leader into the courtyard. The smell of incense drifts faintly, mingling with the ever-present spice that clings to your robe. It feels almost like the spices themselves are bowing, offering their fragrance to the sacred air. Mainstream fact: along the Silk Road, monasteries often became centers of exchange, offering travelers food, shelter, and safety in return for donations or trade. They linked spiritual devotion with practical survival. The monks spread cloth bundles upon the ground. Inside lie herbs, roots, and pigments. Some are crushed into powders, others bound into small packets. One monk unwraps a strip of cloth to reveal sticks of incense, their tips dark with resin. The merchants kneel, presenting their own goods: peppercorns, cinnamon bark, and most prized of all, threads of saffron glowing like captured sunlight. A monk touches the saffron reverently. He explains softly that it will dye their robes, deepening the crimson, preserving the symbol of devotion. In exchange, he offers a stack of manuscripts written in careful script, the ink dark against pale parchment, fringe tidbit. Some monasteries copied texts not only of their faith, but also of medicine, astronomy, and mathematics, becoming unwitting libraries of the ancient world. You realize these manuscripts may one day teach more than any sack of pepper. The barter is quiet, almost ritualistic. There is no haggling, no raised voices. A pinch of saffron here, a small bundle of incense there. The monks smile gently. Merchants nod respectfully. You feel the weight of the moment, as though silver means less here, as though value is measured not in coins, but in color and words. You sit on the edge of the courtyard, chewing a fig. A monk approaches, holding a small bowl of steaming broth. He offers it with a bow, and you accept gratefully. The flavor is mild, herbs floating faintly on the surface, yet it soothes your stomach more than any feast. Joke number 1. At last, a recipe that tastes like boiled wisdom, low spice, high serenity. The scribe hovers near the manuscripts, eyes wide. He whispers questions about the texts, the language, the ink. The monks answer patiently, showing him a page covered in diagrams of stars. He scribbles his own notes quickly, muttering about how knowledge itself is the greatest cargo. Historians still argue whether such exchanges spread learning faster than trade spread wealth. Watching him, you suspect the answer is yes. One monk offers beads carved from wood, strung together with simple cord. Merchants accept them eagerly, some for faith, some for luck, some perhaps only for decoration. You take one too, running fingers across the smooth beads. They smell faintly of sandalwood, calming as you roll them in your palm. The sun leans westward, shadows stretching longer. The leader signals it is time to move on. Merchants gather their sacks, monks fold their bundles, and parting bows are exchanged. The caravan reforms, heavier with manuscripts, lighter with saffron, carrying blessings invisible yet tangible. As you leave the monastery behind, the air feels changed. The spices on your mule still scent the breeze, but now there lingers incense too, faint yet persistent. You wonder how far such a fragrance will carry, how long before it fades beneath cinnamon and pepper. The road narrows again, winding between dunes. Merchants murmur about the manuscripts, speculating on their contents. Some hope for maps to hidden wells, others for medical cures, others simply for stories to entertain long nights. The scribe listens, smiling faintly, knowing that even speculation is a form of profit. You walk silently, beads rolling in your hand. The desert feels less harsh for a while, softened by the memory of bowed heads and quiet voices. Joke number 2. Perhaps if you hang enough beads on your mule, it will finally behave like a saint instead of a stubborn mule. Evening comes with gentler air. Fires crackle once more, and bread is shared. Merchants gather to discuss the day's unusual barter. Some argue saffron traded too cheaply. Others insist the blessings alone were worth it. Historians still argue whether monasteries profited from such exchanges or gave more than they received. Around your fire, you decide both can be true. Profit measured in more than one kind of ledger. The scribe reads aloud from one manuscript, translating haltingly. His voice rises as he describes constellations mapped with unfamiliar names, planets sketched with circles, notes on eclipses. Merchants listen wide-eyed, though most admit they prefer silver to stars. Yet even they cannot deny the pull of knowledge sung in ink. Later, music returns, lutes and drums, soft this time, weaving around the night. The monk's incense still lingers, giving the camp a fragrance richer than usual. You lie back on your mat, beads in hand, staring at the stars as the scribe's voice echoes in your ears. The road has shown you markets loud with haggling, outposts filled with laughter, caravanserais brimming with silver. Yet tonight, you carry something quieter. A reminder that not every trade is for profit alone. Some exchanges leave no coin, only a calmness in the chest, a steadiness in the step. Joke number 3. Though if serenity could be taxed, the guards would find a way to measure it in spoonfuls. You close your eyes, cinnamon scent mingling with incense, beads warm in your palm. Tomorrow, the road resumes its endless rhythm. But tonight, you rest within the memory of monks who traded silence for saffron, and in doing so, turned the desert into a library without walls. The caravan rises with the sun once again, shadows long and spidery against the pale sand. The monastery fades into distance, leaving behind only faint traces of incense in the bundles and a hush in the merchants' voices. The leader does not linger. He urges the line onward, for today will bring the last great trade of this stage of the journey. Everyone knows it, feels it in the way they walk, shoulders straight despite weariness, eyes sharpened by the promise of silk. The road narrows between ridges where stone juts like broken teeth. Sand crunches beneath sandals, ropes creak with shifting weight, and the air smells of dust baked new by the rising light. You breathe deeply, tasting both spice and anticipation. Mainstream fact: silk was the ultimate prize of these roads, its value rivaling that of gold, desired in courts from Byzantium to Baghdad. To carry silk meant status, meant wealth, meant power stitched into fabric. By midday, the horizon glimmers with color. At first it seems a mirage, a trick of the heat. But soon, bolts of fabric appear clearly, spread across the ground like rivers, frozen mid-flow. Reds deeper than wine, blues brighter than sky, greens sharp as emerald leaves. The silk merchants wait in a wide circle, their bundles unfurled to catch the sun, every thread shimmering as though alive. The caravan halts, men murmuring softly. The air thickens with excitement. Merchants step forward, laying down their pepper, saffron, and cinnamon in neat rows. The silk traders study them, fingers brushing threads of saffron, noses sniffing pepper, eyes squinting at cinnamon bark. The bartering begins, voices rising and falling like waves, words sharp as knives. You untie your bundle of peppercorns, spilling a few into your palm. One silk merchant picks one up, rolls it between his fingers, then places it on his tongue. He chews, grimaces, then nods. His assistant whispers, calculating. You feel your heart quicken as he gestures to a bolt of silk the color of deep twilight. He claims the trade fair, pepper for silk, weight for weight. You know better. Pepper is lighter, harder to measure, easier to exaggerate. Yet the bolt calls to you, shimmering with a life that pepper cannot match. Negotiation drags. Voices rise, hands wave, eyes narrow. One merchant insists your saffron is too pale, dyed with marigold perhaps. Another counters that the silk is thin, woven with shortcuts. Historians still argue whether such accusations were honest appraisals or simply tactics to unbalance the opponent. In this marketplace, truth bends like reeds in the wind. The leader steps forward, his staff striking ground. He commands silence, then begins his own bargaining. His words flow smooth as oil, weaving praise into insult, generosity into demand. Coins jingle, promises fly, tempers flare, yet slowly the balance tips. Bolts of silk are measured, cut, and folded into arms. Spices vanish into other hands, their fragrance already less noticeable among the riot of colors. At last, your turn comes. You press forward, offering 2 sacks of pepper. The silk merchant studies you, his gaze sharp, his fingers tapping. He gestures to a bolt of green, shimmering like new leaves after rain. He says it is worth 3 sacks. You argue, voice steady though your palms sweat, insisting pepper travels farther than silk, that its bite endures longer. Back and forth you circle, until finally he sighs, relents, and drops the bolt into your arms. You stagger slightly at its weight, heavier than expected, heavier than pepper, though softer than clouds. Joke number 1. If profit were measured in sneezes, pepper would win. If in sighs of admiration, silk always triumphs. You clutch the fabric tightly, marveling. It ripples like water under your fingers, smooth and cold, yet alive with warmth when light shifts across it. You imagine it stitched into robes, draped across thrones, carried into courts where people will gasp and whisper. You realize then that you are not just a carrier of spice. You are now part of the Silk Road's other half, the part that glitters instead of burns. Around you, more exchanges unfold. Cinnamon for blue silk, saffron for gold, pepper for crimson. Merchants argue, laugh, curse, embrace. The air buzzes with energy, every trade a small victory or defeat. Every bolt carried away a future promise of wealth. The scribe scribbles furiously, recording each deal, each color, each measure. He notes not only what is traded, but also who smiles afterward and who scowls. He knows moods matter as much as goods. Fringe tidbit. Some records suggest scribes even tracked patterns of temper, predicting which merchants could be pressed harder based on whether they had eaten or drunk that day. You watch him, amused, wondering if he'll describe you as too eager for green. Hours pass. The sun leans west. Shadows lengthen. The last trades finish. Bolts tied. Sacks closed. Merchants wipe sweat from their brows. Exhaustion mingled with relief. Silk shimmers now among the caravan's loads. Flashes of color between dull burlap sacks. The air smells less of pepper and more of possibility. Evening falls, and camp is made among low dunes. Fires crackle. Bread toasts. Rice simmers. Merchants unroll small samples of silk, showing them off, boasting loudly. One man drapes a crimson bolt across his shoulders, strutting as though he already sits on a throne. Laughter erupts. Coins clink in wagers about which fabric will fetch the highest price. Joke number 2. If pride were cargo, no caravan could carry it all. You sit with your own bolt, folded neatly beside you. Its green sheen glimmers in firelight, changing shades as shadows shift. You stroke it absently, half afraid it will vanish like a dream. Around you, talk circles endlessly. Markets in Bukhara, nobles in Nishapur. Whether red or blue will sell faster this season. Historians still argue which colors commanded the highest value, though evidence suggests preferences changed constantly. Fashion as fickle, then as now. The scribe joins you briefly, peering at the silk. He murmurs about the skill required, about looms and worms and dyes. He scratches notes, muttering that centuries hence, scholars will still debate how such brilliance came from thread so fine. You chuckle, shaking your head. To you, it feels simpler. Silk glitters, and men will pay for glitter. Night deepens. The musicians take up lutes again, playing lighter tunes. Children weave between fires, clutching scraps of silk cut too small to sell. Their laughter rising into the dark. The air smells faintly of saffron rice, spiced lamb, smoke, and silk itself, an odd fragrance, part earthy, part ethereal. You lie back at last, bolt of green under your head, softer than any pillow yet carried on this road. Joke number 3. For once, you don't mind if your dreams are expensive. Above, stars scatter, indifferent to trade, yet you feel them shimmer in rhythm with the silk. The road has carried you through dust, through haggling, through taxes and tolls. Now it carries you into dreams colored brighter than before. Tomorrow the caravan will move again. But tonight, you rest rich not only in silver, but in shimmering fabric. Proof that all the sweat and dust can become beauty folded into cloth. The caravan slows at last, evening casting long violet shadows across the dunes. Your mule groans beneath its load of silk and spice, yet you guide it toward the camp where fires already flicker. Merchants drop their bundles, sighing in relief, laughter bubbling despite exhaustion. You find a clear patch of sand, spread your mat, and lower your bolt of green silk beside you. Its sheen glows faintly, even in dusk, like captured starlight. You sit cross-legged, brushing dust from your robe, letting the day's weight ease from your shoulders. The air cools quickly now, the fierce sun replaced by a gentler chill. Smoke drifts upward as bread bakes on flat stones. A pot of rice simmers with saffron, its golden hue bright even in dim light. The smell mingles with cinnamon bark tossed on embers, sharp and sweet, clinging to every breath. You chew slowly, savoring, your body heavy with fatigue, but your mind strangely light. Joke number 1. After miles of dust, even rice tastes like a king's banquet. Around the fire, merchants recount the day's trades. Some boast of bolts gained, others sigh at coins lost. all weaving tales, half true, half exaggerated. One claims his pepper bought crimson silk, finer than any palace robe. Another insists his saffron will soon dye the garments of distant kings. Historians still argue whether caravans exaggerated their profits to intimidate rivals or simply to comfort themselves after harsh miles. Listening now, you suspect it is both. Children chase each other in the sand, scraps of silk trailing behind them like banners. A musician plucks a lute, the notes soft, meandering. The scribe sits apart, scroll open, his pen scratching. He records quietly, unmoved by laughter, unmoved by boasting, yet his eyes glimmer in firelight. You wonder if he writes of the trade, or of the laughter, or of the silence that always settles when the songs fade. The night deepens. Stars spill across the sky in impossible numbers, bright enough to guide, vast enough to humble. You lie back, head against the folded silk, staring upward. Your mule lies nearby, breathing in slow rhythm, its sides rising and falling like a tired drum. Joke number 2. If snores counted as music, the mule would headline every caravan concert. The leader walks the perimeter, staff tapping softly. His silhouette moves steady against the horizon, a reminder that even rest carries responsibility. You feel safer knowing his eyes sweep the dark, though you know safety is always temporary here. The desert takes nothing for granted. You close your eyes briefly, listening to the sounds of camp. Murmurs of conversation, crackle of fire, distant call of a night bird. The air carries spice and smoke, warm and sharp, wrapping around you like a second blanket. Mainstream fact. Ancient travelers often described the desert at night as both the most peaceful and most dangerous place, silence masking beauty and threat alike. You breathe deeply, letting both truths settle in your chest. Your thoughts wander to tomorrow. More roads, more dust, more markets waiting. The bolt of green silk will travel with you, traded eventually for silver, or perhaps kept as proof that you too carried wealth across the sands. The spices will thin, scattered into stews, scattered into dyes, scattered into medicine. Yet tonight they remain with you, filling the camp with fragrance, weaving memory into every breath. The fire burns low. Merchants yawn, rolling onto mats, pulling robes over shoulders. Children finally sleep, silk scraps clutched in fists. The musician lays aside his lute, strings sighing. The scribe closes his scroll, though his lips still move as though reciting. You lie still, eyelids heavy, body sinking into sand. Joke number 3. The desert may be endless, but your energy is not. And tonight it collapses faster than any market rumor. You drift, thoughts dissolving into quiet, stars glowing above, silk soft beneath, and the caravan breathing like a single creature, tired yet unbroken. Now, as the last embers dim, let your breath slow with the rhythm of the caravan resting. Imagine the hush that follows laughter, the way voices taper off until only the crackle of fading fire remains. The desert air cools around you, carrying scents of saffron and cinnamon, their sharpness mellowed into something gentle. Each breath is lighter, each blink slower, your body loosening as though ropes have been untied, burdens lifted one by one. Above you, stars stretch endlessly, their light steady, calm, unwavering. They remind you that the road is ancient, that countless footsteps have passed this way, each leaving nothing but a trace, each fading into silence. Let that thought soften you. The weight you feel tonight will ease. The miles you carry in your mind will dissolve. Picture your head resting against soft fabric, silk folded carefully beneath you, cool and smooth. The mule sighs nearby, steady, reliable. It snores, almost comical, yet comforting. Fires have gone quiet now, merchants asleep, children dreaming of scraps of cloth fluttering like banners. The scribe's pen has stopped at last, the page blank until morning, proof that even ink must pause. Feel your own pause arriving. Shoulders sink, breath steadies, mind drifts. You are safe in this moment, wrapped in spice and silence. No debts demand attention. No voices demand answers. Only calm, steady air and the endless stars above. Let yourself rest as the caravan rests. Let sleep carry you forward as surely as the road. You have walked enough for tonight. You have bartered, laughed, guarded, and endured. Now, you simply breathe. And with each breath, you fall softer, slower, steadier, until the desert itself hums you into dreams.